I'm J.R. Church. Welcome to today's analysis of the news. This article comes from Debka Files, and it says that Syria has lost its ambassadors to Iraq because Damascus is a terror haven. Here's what it says, August 25th, 2009. Damascus has turned aside a demand from Baghdad to extradite two Iraqi leaders, members of the Ba'ath Party, that's Saddam Hussein's party, believed to have orchestrated from their base in eastern Syria the deadly coordinated bombing attacks which rocked the Iraqi capital on August 19th, killing 100 people and leaving more than 1,000 injured. The Iraqi security authorities named Mohammed Yunus al-Ahmed, head of the Ba'ath Party's military arm based in Damascus, and his operations officer, Satam Farhan. The demand followed broadcast confessions by detainees held in Iraq on suspicion of taking part in the atrocity. They named the two Syrian-based chiefs as having ordered the bombing attacks and providing the explosives. The Assad regime responded to the Iraqi demand by recalling its ambassador from Baghdad. Iraq reciprocated by summoning his ambassador home from Damascus. So the two countries, Iraq and Syria, are not talking to each other right now. They have each recalled their ambassadors to the other country. On August 13th, a high-ranking U.S. delegation headed by Fred Hoff, head of the Mitchell's Group's Syrian desk, and General Michael Moeller of the U.S. Central Command arrived in Damascus. They were there to find out if President Bashar Assad was ready to put a stop to the flow of terrorists and weapons from his country into Iraq and the smuggling of Iranian arms to the Hezbollah in Lebanon. That willingness is perceived in Washington as the litmus test for a possible rapprochement. But almost 2 weeks have gone by, and Assad still has not answered those questions. A few days later, on August 18th, Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki went to Damascus with the same question. He told the Americans that Iraq was a sovereign state and that their intercession on the security problems was unnecessary. So he said to the United States, don't bother asking Assad. That's my problem. I'll do it myself. So he went, and this time Assad flatly denied that Syria was permitting Iraqi Ba'ath terrorists to operate from its soil. Well, the following day, Baghdad suffered one of the worst terrorist attacks in its history. Maliki was thus treated to a test of his neighbor's two-faced attitude on terrorism. While promising to fight terrorists, Assad gives them free rein to operate undisturbed from bases in his country. So, Syria has problems with Iraq. If you recall from Ezekiel chapter 38, Iraq, or ancient Babylon, is not mentioned among the combatants in the battle of Gog and Magog. Oh, Syria is a combatant, yes. I'm sorry, Syria is not a combatant. Iran is a combatant. And Iran, or ancient Persia, and then there are other countries with Russia in their invasion, but Syria and Iraq are not a part of this. Neither is Egypt, by the way. So to me, this sounds like there could be a war. Now, because there is a war in Iraq, I can understand why Iraq is no longer have a standing army to fight against Israel. Syria and Egypt, however, they're not going to be in the battle of Gog and Magog either. So maybe there's some kind of upcoming battle before the battle of Gog and Magog takes place. It's a fascinating thing that's going on. I want to read to you just a little excerpt here from this book called Betrayed, The Conspiracy to Divide Jerusalem. It's a book we've been offering on our webcast for the last few days for $9.95. It's a $29.99 book. Got the price right here above the barcode printed on the book, $29.99. we'll send it to you for $9.95 plus shipping and handling. So, here's what Mike Evans, the author of this book, once wrote on page 208. I once talked about the importance of the prophecies with Benjamin Netanyahu years before he became Prime Minister of Israel. The truth of the matter is, if it had not been for the prophetic promises about returning to our homeland, the Jewish people would not have survived, he said. There is something about reading the statements of the prophets from the original Hebrew language. The powerful impact of those words bore deeply into your heart and is implemented into your mind. There's absolutely no question but that those ancient prophetic promises kept hope alive in the heart of the Jewish people and sustained us over the generations when we had nothing else with which to cling. He writes, from the beginning of their independence, and while they were still at war, Israel threw open its doors to Jewish refugees. Within the first 4 months after independence, some 50,000 Jews fled to Israel. Most of them were Holocaust survivors. The total number of immigrants climbed to almost 700,000 during the first 3 years, doubling Israel's population. In 1950, the Knesset unanimously passed the Law of Return, stating that all Jews everywhere had a right to make Israel their home. Over 2.5 million, coming from the four corners of the earth, have done just that, settling in a land they had never seen but always longed for. Next year in Jerusalem has become a reality for them. Fascinating, isn't it? I want you to get this book. It's called Betrayed, The Conspiracy to Divide Jerusalem. We've got it on special for a few days. We have just a limited number in our warehouse, but we still have some left, and we want to get one out to you. Will you call us today at 1-800-475-1111, or you can order it here on the internet. It's called Betrayed by Mike Evans, The Conspiracy to Divide Jerusalem, and his subtitle here, The Secret U.S. State Department Plan to Relinquish the Temple Mount, which will unlock Pandora's box and unify radical Islam. Get it today, will you? For 2/3 off the regular price. Instead of $30, it's only $9.95 plus shipping and handling. Order it today, will you? I'm J.R. Church. We'll see you again tomorrow with our analysis of the news.